Welcome to Pasadena Monthly. I'm your host, Justin Chapman. After taking a look at what's been going on in Pasadena this past month, we'll speak with our guest, Pasadena Librarian Tim McDonald. But before we get started, let's check out these Pasadena media news briefs.
Pasadena Water and Power announced a turf replacement rebate program aimed at encouraging residents and businesses to conserve water by replacing turf with drought-tolerant landscapes. Eligible residential and commercial customers can receive $3 per square foot of turf replaced, with residential customers also eligible for an additional $100 per tree for up to 5 trees. The program promotes water-efficient irrigation systems and rainwater capture techniques, supporting sustainable landscaping practices. To qualify, customers must apply and receive approval through the SoCal WaterSmart website before beginning any projects. The minimum project size for residential customers is 250 square feet of turf, while commercial projects can span up to 50,000 square feet. Projects must adhere to the specific guidelines, including the use of native plants, mulch, and efficient irrigation systems. Rebate availability is subject to change, and applicants are encouraged to visit the program's website for detailed terms and conditions. For more information, visit pwp.cityofpasadena.net/turf replacement. The Rose Bowl Aquatic Center honored Pasadena civil rights leader Dr. Edna L. Griffin by renaming its recreational pool in her memory and held a dedication ceremony on Wednesday, September 18th. Dr. Griffin, a key figure in social justice, served as the first black female president of Pasadena's NAACP from 1938 to 1947. She's best known for leading the successful effort to desegregate the Brookside Plunge, a municipal pool that had been racially segregated since 1914. The Rose Bowl Aquatic Center continues to promote inclusivity and community wellness. Renaming the pool in honor of Dr. Griffin reflects a dedication to her legacy of equality and civil rights. For more information about the Rose Bowl Aquatic Center, visit rosebowlaquatics.org. On Saturday, November 9th and Friday, December 13th, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., the Pasadena Museum of History invites the community to take part in a special curator's tour of the exhibition Lights, Camera, Action, Hollywood Magic in Pasadena, led by curator Julia Long. This one-hour tour will delve into the world of Hollywood's history in Pasadena, showcasing the remarkable research that informed the exhibition and highlighting the wide array of objects on display. Participants will gain unique insights into the pivotal role Pasadena played in the film industry, learning about the city's contributions both on-screen and behind the scenes. Space is limited and advance reservations are required. Don't miss this opportunity to explore the intersection of Hollywood and Pasadena through the lens of history and storytelling. For more information about the event or to purchase tickets, go to pasadenahistory.org/events.
Let's turn next to our lightning round of news updates. 1. The City of South Pasadena has listed 5 historic properties for sale that were previously owned by Caltrans, which of course had planned to tear them down and build a freeway. Hundreds of properties in South Pasadena, LA, and at Pasadena are expected to go through the process as well and eventually be sold. In Pasadena, 17 vacant homes will be purchased by the city soon. Regarding Pasadena's Reconnecting Communities 710 Advisory Group, the city's consultants are still in the data gathering phase to learn as much as possible about what the 710 stub area was like and who was impacted before Caltrans turned it into the freeway stub. One of the consultants, Allegra Consulting, has been conducting oral history interviews and reported that 43 people and 40 addresses have been identified as displaced by the 710 freeway project, including 5 renters. 2. After exploring several other options, Pasadena City Council approved 2 plaques to honor the Pasadena-based R&B musical group Troupe, which was founded in the early 1980s by Pasadena high school students. One plaque will be placed at the Civic Auditorium and the other at Central Park, both explaining different aspects of the inspiring story of this group that has performed around the world and had 3 #1 singles and 10 top 10 singles on the Billboard R&B singles chart between 1988 and 1992, as well as 3 certified gold albums and 1 certified platinum album. The Recreation and Parks Commission will work on the details of the 2 plaques. 3. FIFA announced that the Rose Bowl Stadium has been chosen as one of 12 venues to host soccer games for the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup in June and July. The Club World Cup will be expanded to 32 teams, bringing together top soccer clubs from Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, and North America. International soccer has become one of the pillars of the Rose Bowl's ongoing financial success. 4. Due to impending audits by the California Department of Resources, Recycling, and Recovery, Pasadena is getting ready to increase its enforcement of residential organic waste recycling in an effort to divert food waste and yard trimmings away from landfills. The state mandates local enforcement, but now state officials from Cal Recycle will be visiting Pasadena to tip every lid of every trash can in the city themselves to make sure the proper sorting regulations are being followed. Residents are supposed to place food waste in plastic bags inside their green yard waste bins. After collection, the bagged food waste is then separated, with yard waste sent to a composting facility in Ventura and food waste converted into a bio-slurry that produces electricity, biogas, and renewable natural gas. 5. Pasadena Housing Director Bill Wong has announced his retirement, effective December 16th. He started in Pasadena in 2009, and his career to expand affordable housing spans more than 3 decades as a developer, architect, and in the public sector with LA County and Pasadena. He also worked at or helped establish the National Trust for Historic Preservation, the LA Community Design Center, and the Hollywood and West Hollywood Community Housing Corporation's Heritage Housing Partners, and more. Vice Mayor Steve Madison called Wong, quote, the best housing director in the country. He truly walks the walk when it comes to addressing housing issues in our community. His well-earned retirement is a huge loss for Pasadena, and we will be hard-pressed to replace him. And at the same time, that recruitment process is a huge opportunity that we must make a top priority, end quote. 6. The Pasadena Rental Housing Board approved new regulations that authorize landlords to petition for rent increases above the normal annual general adjustment limit in order to ensure a fair return on their properties, and they set a 15% annual cap on rent increases, including both the regular allowed increase and any upward adjustments. 2021 will be the base year for calculating fair returns, and tenant hardship will be considered when evaluating increased requests on a case-by-case basis, among other provisions. The board also clarified that owner-occupied single-family homes are exempt from the rental registry requirements. 7. Pasadena's Polytechnic School has scrapped its plan to build a multi-million-dollar sports complex at a nursery near Cheney Trail in the foothills of Altadena. School administrators cited high development costs due to infrastructure, engineering, and grading requirements, though many Altadenans were strongly opposed to the project as incompatible for that location, and thousands of signatures were collected in opposition. 8. Tournament of Roses President Ed Morales named sports and social justice legend Billie Jean King as the 2025 Rose Parade Grand Marshal, the theme of which is Best Day Ever. King said that theme celebrates life's best moments and reminds us of the importance of living in the moment every single day and just making the time to share it with those you love. Now 80, King is a 39-time Grand Slam tennis champion who founded the Women's Tennis Association and the Women's Sports Foundation, and received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and is an inspiration to male and female athletes around the world. 9, a delegation of several Pasadena community members, including myself representing the Vice Mayor, traveled to Guanajuato, Mexico earlier this month in an exploratory visit to explore the idea of establishing a sister cities relationship between Pasadena and Guanajuato, both similarly sized cities with a strong sense of history and preservation, shared passions for art, culture, and science, and the presence of renowned educational institutions. The delegation visited numerous entities such as the University of Guanajuato, the State Congress Building, the Mayor's Office and Council Chambers, historical sites, and much more, and established relationships of potential collaboration with many government officials, elected officials, professors, historians, directors, and community leaders. One of the greatest honors of the trip was when our delegation was invited to the historic and iconic Teatro Juarez for the exclusive midnight inauguration and swearing-in ceremony of the newly elected Presidenta Municipal, the mayor, Samantha Smith, and city council members for Guanajuato City, who will serve through 2027. This major, solemn, and historical event took place at exactly 12:01 a.m. And now the mayor of Guanajuato City, the governor of Guanajuato State, and the president of Mexico are all women. Community-led support groups in both cities, Pasadena and Guanajuato, will continue to explore this international friendship opportunity, as a Pasadena sister city relationship with the city in Mexico is long overdue. And 10, the City Council approved the submission of an application for $6.3 million in homeless services funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The funds would support 17 projects aimed at preventing and addressing homelessness. The council also voted to support Measure A, the county's proposed half-cent sales tax that is on the November 5th ballot and would fund critical homelessness services and affordable housing developments throughout LA County, if approved by voters. Let's welcome our guest, Pasadena Librarian Tim McDonald, Director of Pasadena's Department of Libraries and Information Services. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great to be here, Justin. Thank you.
Tim has worked with the City of Pasadena since 2016. He previously worked in the Las Vegas Clark County Library District and as a public school teacher in Chicago. He now oversees the century-old Pasadena Central Library and 10 branch locations, which collectively circulate over 1.2 million library books and other resources annually to the community. So Tim, tell us about a little more about your career. What led you into library services and then to Pasadena?
Sure. Well, becoming a librarian was a little bit nature and a little bit nurture. My mom is a librarian, so I learned from an early age the importance of libraries and what they offer to the community. Specifically, I've been working in libraries for 20 years. Before that, I was a school teacher, and I realized that the school librarian had the best job in the school. And that's kind of what made me, convinced me to make the change. I've enjoyed working in libraries, and what specifically led me to Pasadena is a little bit professional and a little bit personal. My partner's mother, in her golden years, needed additional support. And she lived here in Pasadena and needed family around her. So it's one of the reasons I looked at Pasadena and coming here. And I've been here for the last 8 years, and I'm happy to say I'm very grateful for the city of Pasadena for offering a safe place for her to live and have a very rich life in her golden years, and happy to be here ever since. I have the best job in the city. I work in an institution that's free and open to everybody, access to information and learning for the entire community, no matter what age you are, what your background is, what you look like. The library is here for everybody, and I enjoy offering those services and working with a terrific team to provide those services.
And of course, the Central Library has been closed since May 2021.
That's right.
And in fact, I actually lost a job with the city, a job opportunity with the library because of it. I had got a job offer, and then 2 days later they had to close and withdraw it. But I'm back with the city now. Things have a funny way of working out. But it's been that long, over 3 years. What has the city done about the books, the resources, the staff, the services that were housed there at Central Library while it's closed, and it's going to be longer than people expect, I imagine?
That's a great question, and one that could probably take an hour talking about all the interim services and decisions that were made. But there are hundreds of thousands of books in the library that needed to be relocated. We moved as many of them into our neighborhood branch libraries as we could for access to the community, but there are still many, many left over. So a city-owned warehouse on South Raymond, known as the Rose Palace, site of the construction of many parade floats, rock concerts in the 80s, is now the home of Central Library's book collection. Almost all of the books are there, with the exception of those very rare local history, one-of-a-kind resources in what we call our Centennial Room, the local history section of the library. Those are one-of-a-kind materials that are very carefully climate controlled for temperature and humidity. The safest place for them right now is still in the library. Wow. But we are identifying a space to remodel and move those into safe temporary storage during the construction phase of this retrofit project, pending funding.
And throughout this whole period, the books that didn't make it to other branches, the ones that are at the Rose Palace and in Central, are not accessible to the public. Is that correct?
They're in staff areas, you're right. They are accessible by our online catalog. Any member of the community can request one of those books, and it will be shipped to the neighborhood branch of your choice. It'll take longer. You won't be able to browse it in person, but it will get to you that way.
Let's talk about Measure PL, the library bond measure. What is it? Why is it necessary for the retrofit of the Central Library? And then, of course, how the levy itself is tabulated.
You talked about the closure of Central Library in 2021. So that was devastating milestone in the library's history. The library system as a whole is 140 years old, even older than the incorporation of the city. And 100 years ago, when Central Library was built, the city aspired to have a great library for a great city. And it was part of this Bennett plan, the master plan of the community, that included the civic auditorium, City Hall, and the library as the anchors of that plan. And when those buildings were built, and the library being the first one of those built, it was built with incredible care and craftsmanship and art to last a very long time. And a building that is nearly 100 years old has depreciated very little in that time. But we knew as it was getting closer to its 100th anniversary that it was going to need some TLC. So specifically, we knew that the fire safety system needed to be upgraded. So with that in mind, we did in floor to ceiling, soup to nuts assessment of the building with the help of the city's Public Works Department, and identified a bigger need than we ever realized.
Right.
This fact that the building is made of unreinforced masonry and is not up to current building requirements in terms of life safety.
Right.
In an earthquake of the right size or coming from the right direction, the building is in danger of collapsing. And with a building that with this much visitorship, we can't let that happen. Yeah. So we need to build it, protect the building from collapse through what we're calling a seismic retrofit. So that's the reason the building is closed, and that's the work that needs to be done before we can reopen it. The design phase of this project is underway right now and expects to have a shovel-ready project by 2025, working with a team of terrific architects from a firm known as Gruen Associates that has done many projects with libraries and historic buildings such as this. The designs, as I said, will be ready next year. Pending funding, we can begin construction on that project next year.
Wow.
Measure PL is the financial strategy that the City Council accepted this year to put before voters a question about, will voters authorize the city to issue bonds in the amount necessary to begin this construction project? That's the question in a nutshell that'll be before voters this November.
Right.
Yeah.
And how is it based on assessed value or current property value? How does that aspect of it work?
Thanks for that question, because that's a question I get asked a lot. So the amount levied on each parcel throughout the city will vary. Won't be the same for everyone. It'll be based on the assessed value of the property, not the current market value, but the assessed value you'd find on your property tax bill. Over the course of this bond, a 30-year bond, the average levy is about 26. Let me double check my numbers, because the average value is $19.61 per $100,000 of assessed value over the course of that bond. The initial assessed value, average value assessment will be $28.90 per $100,000 of assessed values. What does that mean in terms of the average home price in Pasadena? Average assessed value would translate into about $208 per year assessment for this bond measure. Again, some higher, some lower, depending on the assessed value of your property.
And is this one that needs like a supermajority, or is it 55% or 50+1?
This will require 2/3 approval of voters locally here in Pasadena to say yes for this to pass. Interestingly, at the state level, there's another item on the ballot called Proposition 5, which is about public infrastructure bonds and lowering the threshold for voter approval from 2/3 to 55% is the question in Proposition 5, which would include bonds that are on this current ballot and future ones too. So the short answer is we need 2/3, but if Prop 5 passes statewide, then only 55% of local Pasadena voters would need to approve Measure PL for the library bonds to be issued.
That's interesting. And I mean, there have been a few library bond or other similar measures over the years, and Pasadenans have typically voted overwhelmingly in support of the Pasadena Library. It is sort of a crowded ballot this time with other bond measures, other charter amendment measures and things. state measures, as you mentioned. It's going to be a pretty full ballot. What's your sense of talking to people in Pasadena about the level of enthusiasm support for Measure PL this year?
You're right. The library has enjoyed a high level of support from the community over time. In the early 90s, when there was a budget shortfall and it looked like services for libraries were in danger of being cut back, the community came together and taxed themselves with a library special tax for the operations of libraries that has been renewed since that initial passage in 1993 a number of times at higher and higher levels of support. I believe it was 80% of voter support the first time it was issued. When it was renewed 2 years ago, 85% of Pasadena voters passed that library special tax for the operations of libraries. So there has been traditionally very high support among voters. This current Measure PL is a capital improvement project. It's separate from those operating costs. I feel confident that that we continue to enjoy high support, but we'll see on election day.
Yeah. Do we know? Let's say it doesn't pass, doesn't meet the threshold. What are some plans B, C for the Central Library going forward?
Feel confident that that we will probably see the passage of Measure PL, but if it does not pass, which is a possible outcome, we would look to City Council for some direction strategically on what next steps would be in terms of the services offered to their community and what to do with Central Library. That's it in a nutshell. The Pasadena City Council placed this measure on the ballot as a financing strategy, and if it doesn't move forward, we return to them for next steps.
And following on the line of historical support for the library, the publishing industry has changed so much, the media industry has changed so much. It would seem like on the surface that physical hard books are not as relevant. Everything's going digital, but talk to us about why that's not the case, both for the physical books, but also what the 21st century library will look like, and your vision for when the Central Library reopens, and how it can still be a very relevant resource for the community.
It's a great question. Libraries have been and will continue to be information centers, learning centers for the community that are free and accessible and open to everybody. And we will adapt to the formats, the languages, the content that the community demands. It's a public library serving those needs. It may surprise some viewers to hear that the demand for books continues to be very strong. We are not merely a depository for books, but that access to books continues to be a demand that the community expects the library to fill. As libraries evolve over time, though, I say we continue to see the need for flexible spaces in libraries that can accommodate groups of people, small, medium, large, to get together to engage with that information and engage in civic life too. So the Library of the Future will be a place that not only has the library's information, but partners might come in from colleges, hospitals, other learning institutions to teach classes, provide information, hold community programs in the future. Maker spaces is a trend you see a lot in libraries too, and Central Library will include space for things like 3D printers, carving machine, large-scale printers for projects where people are creatively making things in library spaces too. Access to technology is a huge demand that libraries fill, not just for somebody that doesn't have it, but for somebody whose printer goes down at home one day and you need access to a printer. The library is there for you. Big picture, it's a learning center. It's a place where people can come to for trusted information. And into the future, as we're looking at changes in society like artificial intelligence becoming a tool that we can use, the library will be a place where you can come to learn those tools effectively, because it's not going away. We need to learn how to use it ethically and responsibly.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some books that, a lot have been digitized, but a lot of books only exist in physical form. A lot of the books I like to read anyway, I know you can only find in physical form. So it's always going to be important to have that repository, but also it's going to be exciting to see it grow into this new technology a hub of the community. So we'll see what happens in November. And Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us about it. You've got a major project ahead of yourself, but it's really important for Pasadena.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we go, here is this month in Pasadena history. It was this month in 1913, on October 10th, when Adolphus Busch died of a heart attack. Busch was, of course, the German-born co-founder of Anheuser-Busch with his father-in-law, Eberhard Anheuser, the Budweiser beer barons who utilized scientific and technological innovations and an aggressive marketing, branding, and distribution strategy, including establishing a network of ice houses along railroad lines and the first refrigerated freight cars to ship their beer across the country. In 1904, Busch and his wife Lily moved to Pasadena and bought a mansion known as Ivy Wall at 1021 South Orange Grove Avenue on Millionaires Row. The property had 36 undeveloped acres, which they turned into Busch Gardens, a natural amusement park featuring 100,000 plants, statues, waterfalls, ponds, fountains, sunken gardens, and 14 miles of walking paths. Busch Gardens was open to the public for free in 1906. That same year, Busch caught a cold that developed into pneumonia, and his health declined over the ensuing years until his death back in Germany, at which point his estate was worth about $60 million. Busch Gardens was a major tourist attraction and hosted concerts, carnivals, fiestas, parties, Easter egg hunts, dog shows, flower shows, and the production of many, many motion pictures, including The Adventures of Robin Hood, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Frankenstein, Citizen Kane, and Gone with the Wind. At its peak in 1915, annual attendance was 1.5 million people. Lily Busch, who died in 1928, and the Busch heirs tried to offer the gardens to the city of Pasadena 2 times at reasonable rates, but the city declined, citing no need for additional parkland. Busch Gardens closed in 1937, and of course the land was subdivided and is now a residential neighborhood, with very few original features of Busch Gardens remaining in the area. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode of Pasadena Monthly. Tune in every 4th Friday of the month at 5 p.m. Learn more at pasadenamedia.org and justindouglaschapman.com. Drop me a line at jchapman@cityofpasadena.net. We'll see you next time.